Hi friends. So let us now understand what they call it as scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions. Now why this categorization? What exactly does this categorization indicate? So when they call in the carbon accounting literature scope 1 emissions, what they mean is they are the direct emissions. So let's imagine that you have a factory. The factory has a diesel generator as a backup. It has some processing application where a steam generator or boiler is used. There are some vehicles which are owned by the company for commuting the passengers, the employees. And let us say that they have a system, a refrigeration system where there is a refrigerant leak. Now, if you are able to capture the emissions from this diesel generator, which is in-house, the emissions which are arising because of the boiler, fuel use, the emissions from the transportation of the company vehicles, and the emissions because of refrigerant leak, if you are able to quantify those in terms of kgs of CO2 equivalent, they come under scope 1 emissions. So scope 1 emissions are direct emissions from the sources the company own or the company control. Let us again take the same example to understand what are the scope 2 emissions. Scope 2 emissions are the emissions which are attributed to the company, but they are attributed via indirect method. Meaning, for the same company, let us say that they are using grid electricity, and most of the companies they use the electricity supplied by the utilities, which are often outside, and they, let us say, purchase some steam from outside, and they are using some facilities which are from the utilities for cooling. So in that case, the electricity which is being purchased from the outside, or the cooling which is being purchased from the outside, or the process steam which is being purchased from the outside, they are also contributing to the emissions, but not in the company, but outside the company where these things are generated. For example, the steam which is purchased from outside is generated in a boiler which is outside, but that boiler is also burning some fuel. Or the grid electricity which is purchased from the outside is generated from a thermal power plant which is outside, but that thermal power plant is emitting some CO2. Likewise, so this would come under scope 2 emissions. In the scope 3 emissions, we take a very holistic approach wherein we not only talk about the emissions from the sources we control or the indirect energies, we now are interested in the entire value chain. So it means for the industry, if it is necessary for the employees to commute, and the employees are commuting through their own vehicles, those emissions are also considered, because the employees which are staying outside the industry, they come to the company in their own vehicles. Those vehicles are also emitting certain CO2 that has to be considered under scope 3. Or the employees, if they are traveling outside, not for leisure but for business, the transportation, because of that, that would also be included in the scope 3 emissions. The materials which are purchased for processing, those materials would also have certain carbon footprint, and that also has to be accounted for in the scope 3 emissions. Same thing about waste disposal. So it means that the scope 3 emissions are very difficult to account for. In carbon accounting, the most difficult aspect is the measurement of scope 3 emissions. Thank you.